But this is what I would call an organ sound. And the way you're going to create them is by going into Serum and hitting this little pencil button here. This is going to bring you to the Wavetable Editor where we're going to get access to additive synthesis. Now, additive synthesis is a form of synthesis where you're essentially building up tones, building up partials, building up frequencies in order to create sound. So for example, if little blocks you see belong to a frequency, a harmonic, that's in the frequency spectrum. Now, if I go to a sine, the sine should only have one, and that would be what we would call the fundamental, which is the frequency that is related to the note I am currently playing. So in order to create organ-like sounds, in order to create what we hear in that Charlotte de Witte track, No Division, a banger, we want to build up these tones in a particular way where we create an organ-like sound. Now, if you're trying to do a remake, you will be very surgical about this. But if you're just trying to make something for your song, I suggest you just kind of free flow it, hear the sound as you do it. Experiment with it. And once you have something you like, play with it. Add a bit of unison to create these very soft, smooth, organ-like sounds. I'll show you what I did for that Charlotte stab in a sec, but I also want to kind of get something out of the way. The things that makes that sound what it is, the expert touch, which is what I would call it, the thing that separates basic presets from pro, advanced sounding ones. The addition of this LFO being routed to the fine, which is micro adjustments to the pitch, it gets this. Now, if you guys want to get it exactly like the Charlotte de Witte one, this is going to be the profile that you're going to be using for the additive synthesis portion of the sound. These are going to be the harmonics and the amount that they're being added. And we're going to get this particular sound here. Of course, if we remove all the effects, it's going to sound a little more raw, a little like it just got out of bed. Like this, very simple. Okay. And it also has the vibrato effect that we were talking about here with the sine wave that creates that. From there, once you have this, you can literally hit it with effects like delay, reverb, a bit of saturation with distortion, an OTT. But you have the organ part of the sound. And this organ sound is very important because if you're making dance music and you want to learn how to make every single sound in dance music, this particular organ sound has also been used by Belugi, who's like a big Euro dance producer. Now, again, I don't know if these guys are making these sounds from scratch. They might be sampling them out of tracks or finding the one shot, the rave stabs. But at the end of the day, I want you to be able to make them from scratch because when you know how a sound works, it also allows you to think how you can process the sound and how you can develop the sound further. So here we're back to the patch that we were making. We're just going to go bass with this. We're not doing a recreation with this one. We're just having fun with this one. And the next thing is when people would sample rave stabs, usually they would sample orchestral music. They would sample literally anything that had a pretty clean shot for them to sample and run it through a sampler. This would create some form of texture and sound depending on the sampler that they put it in. In order to execute the sound similar to her, I'm going to have to change my oscillator beat to a sampler where I'm going to be able to find one shots from various forms of instruments like vocals, strings, and I'm going to mimic them sampling this sound out of a track which had a lot of other stuff in it by adding my own samples like a vocal one, a string one, a brass one. This is where you can make it your own. But here I'm going to go with this vocal one and increase the unison on it to detune it, but also to make it wide because this sound is down the center. And now we get this sound here. I can put it up an octave. And from there, stack another sound like strings or brass, piano, whatever you really can think of. Put this up an octave. Now, when you hear this sound, right, you're not really hearing the trombone. I would ask, is there a trombone in there? You probably wouldn't be able to say. And also, if I said, what else is there? You wouldn't be able to tell me there's a vocal, right? Because this organ sound is the main center of attention and all these other sounds are there to support the sound. For the actual remake that I did for Paradox Volume 6, I put a lot of effort into getting this exact. It took me about, I'm not gonna lie, an hour. Why? Because I want to get it exact so that when you guys see it, you guys can see how the sound functions. But also, if you want to use it, you know, and make a song and send it to Charlotte de Witte, she's going to be like, how did you get that stab? And of course, you're going to tell her that, oh, you know, I just remade it. That's how I am, dog. You know what I mean? But from here, the ones I decided to go with, right, we have here the custom one. Here's the settings for that. To the left, we're going to have the vocal, the high, long, down 2 octaves to provide this texture to the organ. The vibrato is also going to be routed to it, so it's making it wiggle. If we bypass it by hitting here, sounds like that. We unbypass it. Not that much of a change, so maybe it's not as important. From there to the right of that, again, the way that I went about this was, since I'm doing a remake, I was just going through each one. Okay, what am I missing to the sound? And I started going through a lot of stuff in order to nail it. And eventually I landed on the cello. Now, I don't know if there's a cello in hers, but again, I try to get the vibe that she had, the texture that she had. Now, what does this mean? Why am I telling you this? Well, the reason I'm telling this is because when you make your own organ sound, which is the bottom patch here that we have, when you're making music, you shouldn't be doing this personally. I think you should just flow. Like, you should go in, boom, boom, boom. You know the theory, bam, 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 get us out. Oh, that sounds good, man. And then from there, you go, bam, bam, add this, because you already know the theory, right? Rape stabs, want to create an organ sound. Let's add some texture. You shouldn't really have to be like, oh, does it sound exactly like Charlotte? No, like, we learned the theory. We're learning this so that when you have to make a sound like that, you can work fast. You know the theory. It's not about trying to get a replication 100%, because it makes no sense either. Okay. From there, the effects I've added to that will just be multi-band compression, soft clip, this EQ to bring out highs out of these 2 sounds. Okay. You can see how it just demuddies it. Right? It's not really getting affected. What's getting affected are these guys that create this here. Finally, just in case I didn't explain additive synthesis too clearly for you guys, let me show you guys one last thing. Bottom part is the part that tricks many people when it comes to doing additive synthesis. The bottom part is just pretty much the phase of each of these partials harmonics. If you remember, if we go back to a sine wave, right? A sine wave is just that fundamental frequency. So what the bottom controls is the phase of that fundamental or that harmonic. Now, the thing is as you start to bring each one up here, you can think of all of these little sections, all of these bins at sine waves at different frequency set, right? So here, I can control the phase of this guy with this down here. Now, the issue is if each one is at a different phase, sines can collide, right? A sine's either going up or it's going down. If they are opposites, where one's up and one's down, they will cancel out. And this leads to crazy sounding tones. For example, right? Let's say I have something like, I want to generate a saw, and I'm like, this is a saw. But it doesn't sound like a saw because now watch, I do this. A lot of the sines are canceling each other out, which produces this weird sounding saw. So if I wanted to create a saw properly, then all I would have to do is create a bin, right click, and then create repeat bin group from start position. And now since the phase is lined up for all of them, I get my saw. It's still a bit iffy, as you can see some wiggly lines there, and it's not totally perfect, but this is just a phase for that. Now, if I start to move it again, we start to lose the saw because now some of the sine waves are colliding, clashing, and canceling each other out, which produces a different change of tone, even though I have the saw set up on the top. And I get this. With that being said, guys, if you guys enjoyed this video and you like the sound you heard, make sure to check out Paradox 6, the ultimate modern techno sounds for you guys. It's finally out, and it's going to contain way more recreations as well from some of the nastiest stuff. I will be making tutorials on some of those sounds as well for future reference, so that way if you guys want to learn the thought process behind them so you can make them yourself, then stick around. With that being said, you guys take care and you guys have a great rest of your day.